I just love this view. Whenever I'm driving into Tennessee, I get to go through Blowing Rock and see this. It's just a reminder this is where I'm looking to build my home. First, I want to point out I am in the middle of nowhere. Well, not nowhere, but there's nothing here. This is raw land. No electricity, no running water, no nothing. So in setting up my sawmill, I didn't have a platform. All I had was logs. So I had to use what I did have. And what I did have were aluminum walk planks and cinder blocks. And so what you're seeing here is me setting up the cinder blocks and laying on the walk planks and doing my best to level them so that I could build the tracks on that platform in order to cut the logs to actually build a platform for my sawmill. And is this the most ideal way to do it? No. Honestly, it really probably isn't. But you know, it did give me the opportunity to cut some fairly straight boards. Okay, so it's 6:30, and I have to tell you, getting that sawmill out of the box was a lot of work. The parts are really heavy. It is a very high quality item, no doubt about it. But as you can see, I've only got the rails together, and I'm still not sure they're completely level, so I've got work to do tomorrow morning. But it's 6:30, I'm calling it a night. On the brighter note, it's getting done, so stay tuned. Okay, so here I am, I got it set up, and what you don't see in the image is me using the excavator to move the sawhead onto the rails. It did make it a lot easier, and that is something that people struggle with a little bit sometimes if you don't have the right equipment. But I was still happy. You know, here I am, I'm out in the wilderness, and I've got myself a sawmill stand, sort of, and it's my first time, and I am not going to lie, I was nervous. And I'm going over things, and I'm checking, I'm trying to make sure they're right. And what's funny is, like, my first few cuts, you probably won't see too many of them, but they were really thin, and I'm not sure what my thought was, because that was a couple of years ago. But one thing you're going to see here, if you pay close attention, maybe if you rewind it a couple of times, you'll see that these walk planks, these aluminum walk planks, they flex under the weight of that sawhead. So while I was able to cut boards on this, the thickness varied, and it wasn't a problem with the Woodland Mills sawmill itself. It was a problem with the fact that I didn't have a really secure, stable base. But what it did do is it gave me the ability to make rough sawn lumber to move on to creating a stable base. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is, if you can get that crate offloaded off of your truck pretty much anywhere, you can, with a couple of cinder blocks and some walk planks, build a stable enough base to get the raw materials you need in order to build a sawmill stand. So there's that. Now, I'm not going to brag about these boards because honestly, these are my first boards. It's maybe not even the best use of this wood. This looks like this was probably some nice wood. But what it did do for me is it gave me the raw materials I needed to build a stable base. And that was the goal. And you can look at the walk planks right here. You can see they're sitting on cinder blocks. It's not the most stable thing in the world, but it worked. It gave me what I needed. Looking forward, the next idea I had here was to use fence posts and a fence post hole digger to set the posts. And this way I could get down to the restrictive layer, and they'd be in the ground pretty hard. I'm going to put a board on them, make a mark, put a level on it, and then I could trim off the fence posts. I'd have a level base from which to work because the ground was slanted. Now, the benefit of the slanted ground was water doesn't sit there. It's going to run off. So I got my level base. I put the third post in the middle to have support. And I was able to go forward with doing measurement off of each post once they were straight, because they were obviously in line. They're on a board. And then set my other fence posts, pull a diagonal string, and I had a nice square frame from which to build on top of that was well supported. Things considered, I think it turned out pretty good. It was built on uneven ground, with boards that were literally being cut as it was being built. And I learned a couple of techniques as I was going. And one of the things I did is I painted the bottom to try and keep it from rotting. So I'm hoping that this will last quite a while. Okay, so lessons learned. This was my initial setup, and it's half broke down now, but I figured it was a good time to demonstrate some of the problems that I ran into with this initial setup and why people sometimes on YouTube or in other examples start off with something very rudimentary, maybe not this rudimentary, in their initial sawmill setup. If you were to look out further into my woods, you would see that there is nothing here. Now, I have cut inroads and I have cut some lumber. It's up there and on my trailer. But essentially, I'm with nothing. Completely out in the woods. In fact, my first shelter was just scaffolding set up with walk planks. Actually, very similar to these, actually. So, moving on to stage 2, I built a foundation for a solar kiln, but as it turns out, what I need more than a solar kiln right now is a flat base in order to use my sawmill. I'm taking off the extension to use the 7x14 platform, and hopefully I can cut some very nice straight wood that I can use to build structures with, which will be my final, hopefully, sawmill shack. This is considerably stronger. It's built of 2x6s, 16-inch on center, with true 2x6s mounted perpendicular, and then the sawmill stand actually screwed at the feet to the 2x6s. As you see, I got screws in there, not all the holes, but some. I believe that this will help me get more true to my flat and level surface. I zeroed it in last night with the triple beam balance, or I'm sorry, with the level. And today I'm going to set up my laser level and true it all up completely before I set my sawmill head onto it. So here we go. Okay, so here we are, East Tennessee. It's the next day. I got some wood cut over there, mostly 2x6s. We'll walk over and take a look and see how those came out. Mostly pretty decent. These are my 10-footers. Had one that had split, so I cut it off to stop the split. And the blue case is one of the most valuable tools you'll have as a sawyer. It is a laser level with a target that will tell you up or down when you're adjusting your legs and your bunks. So if you have one, between this and measuring the height of the blade off the bunk as you walk down, take a tape measure and run it across. You know, take a measurement here, come down here, take a measurement here. Make sure that blade is parallel to the bunk and it's the same distance that you get up here. That is the easiest way to be sure that you're not going to get wavy boards as a matter of your bunks being out of alignment. If you do it all the way down, you'll have a consistent cut. Unless your blade is dull and you're cutting too fast. Over here, I have my 4x4s and my 8-foot boards. That was one day. I got some 1 inches over there that I haven't quite set up for stickering yet. And those are my 2x6s. Okay, so at this point, I'm cutting lumber because I've got trees that I had to take down just to make space for me to be able to bring my vehicles in. And there's no point for them to just sit on the ground. And I've got a sawmill. So I'm milling lumber and I'm moving along. And I'm actually building a halfway decent stack of wood. It's actually my first stack. But as you're out here in the summertime, you notice something that is really cool about living in eastern Tennessee, or being in eastern Tennessee, is that things grow. And the reason they grow is because it rains a lot. And it got me to thinking, Do I really want to leave my sawmill out in the weather? What happens when winter comes? Do I really want it to be exposed to ice and snow and rain? That thing was expensive. So it occurred to me that this stand is not nearly enough. I really need a shelter, a real shelter. So with time getting short, I decided it was time to start building something more substantial. Okay, so as you can see, I started building on the end of the platform here for the sawmill. And I had a ton of 2x6s that were in this pile, or that were going to be reduced to 2x4s because there was some bark on them. They don't store well. That's the blackness. That was mildew. I've kind of cleaned it off. But since it's going to have to be used for an outdoor project anyway, I figured expanding the sawmill platform so that I could be able to build a roof over it so that sawmill isn't in the snow this winter. I expanded 8 feet on this side, went 8 out that way, which gave me an extra 2 feet. So you can see where the saw is sitting. I'm expanding the back of this sucker so that I'll be able to put a decent roof over it. Now, again, these were the outside construction type beams, but I don't need this structure to last more than a year or two because I'm going to move the sawmill up there anyway. So, since this is going to be outdoor wood anyway, I was going to use it for planter boxes, but this seemed like a good use so that I could move forward getting this done. And I am going through that old wood, so as I'm refining it to what I'm considering indoor wood or for nice project wood, I'm constructing outdoor projects that are not necessarily livable space, but functional. So I think I'm going to have my materials for my workshop as I am building materials to build the cabin, because I'm only going to save the very best boards to build the cabin. So, workshop is coming. It will be the next thing after this gets a roof. Now, I've never built anything like this before. Never built a shed, but I do have a picture in my mind of what I want it to look like. So, with that in mind, I've been trying to figure out the right materials, the size-wise dimensions for what I needed to make this happen. Now, given my timeline and the building materials and the amount of effort that was going to go into doing this, and considering I'm just one person, I'm not going to go with that exact design, clearly. But I did need to expand on both sides to make sure that there was enough space to justify the amount of effort that it was going to take to put a roof on it. Now, one of the things that was working to my advantage in this particular build was that as I was clearing land to get flat space to be able to move my equipment around, I was taking down trees, so I had an abundance of logs to cut material from. But with my tractor being down, I was kind of in trouble when it came to the bigger logs. Lucky for me, my brother showed up and helped me move some of them, especially the big ones, getting them up onto the sawmill. This was a red oak. This sucker was heavy. It took both of us to get it in there and then to get them cut to 6x6s so that we could have the support columns for the roof. That was no joke to put those up. But with Ted's help, we got them cut, we got them stood, got them braced, and then it was time to put in the cross beams. So I'm here at the, I guess we can say, Sawmill Shack version 2. Because the first version was just the sawmill sitting on a double set of walk planks, like I have here in the base, right here, on cinder blocks. There's the other set of planks I had, right? So the sawmill, the whole sawmill, was sitting here. and I built an initial 6x14 platform to set the sawmill on when it was sitting over here on just the walk planks. Since then, I expanded to make it 8 feet going back, so I added 2 feet to the back, and I added an 8x8 on each end to give me full support for the extension, which is over there. So in building this end of the platform, I put in cross bracing and doubled up the end, or doubled up the floor truss with 2 2x6s to support the extension of the frame. So I've got a double 2x6 here, double 2x6 here, so it should tie in perfectly. And then I'll have full span with the extension. And I have built 6x6 solid oak supports with 2x6 cross beam running, I want to say we've got 16, 14, and 8, 22 foot span approximately. I wanted to say. And what I've got is laminated 2x6s up there that will be 3 thick. So essentially it'll be a 6x6 supported by 2 6x6s. And then the laminate continues on 8 feet in this direction. Okay, so that's where I'm at right now. Well, I didn't put any rafters on today, but there's a lot of it done. What I did do is I moved all these logs from where they were way up on the hill and cut this access in so that I could get the excavator down here if I needed to, load these logs onto the sawmill and cut the rafters I need to finish this job. But I think that came out really cool. So right about here you can see that I've taken some 4x4s and cut them down for ridge supports and built in the braces. And then I put the ridge support on and I doubled it up, so you got a 2x6 that's doubled. By the time I got the full ridge beam up there, it was getting dark, so I called it a night. The next day, I built in all the corner braces on the 45s and started cutting 2x6s like a madman, stacking them up there so I'd have a floor. My wood pile was getting really low. But I was making progress, and the first rafters were going up. Before long, they were starting to stack. It wasn't long before I had them all up there. Then it was time to go to the local supply store and pick up the roofing. Luckily, it wasn't too far away. And that went up relatively easy, but it did have to be cut, and the side panels did have to be trimmed, so that it would kind of look normal, like a normal building should. And don't you know it, man, just as the first snow fell, I finished. I can tell you, I was damn glad to get off that roof. I figured that's not too bad for my first building, although I did admittedly run out of the ridge cap, and I had to use some other metal that I bent for that left-hand side up there. That's why it looks a little funky. Also, where the 2x6s had gone together and I had to make laminates, I glued and screwed them. And then I used the long brown torque bit taking lag bolts. I forgot what they're called, but I used the 4-inch lag screws for connecting all of my uprights, the support beams for the ridge beam and for the sideboards, to the framing and the floor so they wouldn't go anywhere, for the 45s that held the roof supports, and for the beams that were, I want to say trusses, but trusses is not the right word. The rafters. Where the rafters join the ridge beam, those all have screws, those long 4-inch heavy-duty screws. So I'm pretty confident that it's going to last for a while. Considering the fact that most of these, if not all of these, except for the fence posts, are sitting on rocks that have been pounded into the ground and kind of stabilized, the floor is very solid. The beams are all real solid, nothing sitting in the dirt and getting wet. I'm really happy with this building. I think it's going to last quite a while. And this is 2 years old now, and it's still holding up really, really well. I've had a little bit of wood splitting, but not much. And considering the fact this was all green wood, it was built with green wood, I'm pretty happy with that. One other thing I didn't point out was when I was setting up my height for where the ridge beam was going and where the top of the posts were going, I made it a point to shoot a level with the laser level, shoot a line with the laser level, and then measure up from there to get my level point, mark it, and cut it with the chainsaw. That seemed to work really well. The other thing I'm not showing you, and the reason I'm not showing it to you is because I didn't do it, is that I didn't put a floor in on the extensions. In fact, I didn't get that floor in until the next season. I'm not even sure I have pictures of it to put into this video. So I'm just admitting it flat out because honestly, what you see left there for wood, that's all the wood I had left. Everything else I used in the construction of this building. All the logs you saw on the ground, all the wood I had stacked, that was it. It took everything I had and every bit of energy I had to finish this thing before winter set in. Considering I had set it up in the spring, I'd set my sawmill up in the spring, and I had it covered before winter, I consider that a success. Okay, this is near the end of the video. You know what I'm going to ask you for. Please like and subscribe. Please share it with your friends. Please comment below. If it helps the algorithm, it's kind of nice feedback. I just got a little tiny channel, and I'm doing a lot of projects here. I'm sharing them all. Not for monetization, not for a sponsor, but as a video log of all the work and the things that I'm doing to take this property from raw forest to a working homestead. And I would appreciate any support I can get. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a great day. See you on the next video.